Hello, fellow Rotarians and guests. I'm Lori Alton, and I'm honored to serve as your club president for the Rotary year 2021-2022. The Rotary Club of Columbus has a storied past, beginning in 1915, when a group of civic-minded people saw the need for leaders to come together to find ways to make our community better. And now, 106 years later, we're a vibrant, strong club that continues to place service above self. Our club is diverse, with members across all sectors of business, government, military, healthcare, education, nonprofit and community service, ministry, and the arts. And we come together each week as friends with a shared purpose of learning how we can be more involved in the things that matter to all of us. And we leave committed to changing our community and changing lives. As Rotarians, we are people of action, and it shows. The COVID-19 pandemic this past year has presented unique challenges to both our community and our club. However, as Rotarians and as friends, we've been steadfast in our commitment to our club, to one another, and to our fellow citizens. I've seen you reach out to others in need. You've stepped in to serve where there were gaps, and you've demonstrated love and compassion for others. But I'm not at all surprised, because that's what Rotarians do. This year, we're striving for some sense of normalcy in our lives, with our families, and in our club. We can once again gather together each week for lunch and fellowship, and I, for one, could not be more grateful. There are exciting things happening in your Rotary Club, and I'm glad you're part of it. As a service organization, the projects we're planning have a real-time impact on people's lives. So welcome back to Rotary. Thank you for being here, and thank you for making a difference in our community. Well, hello, and welcome to the July 28th meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. And it is so wonderful to look out and see so many of you. Some of you I have not seen in a long, long time, so welcome back. And for those of you joining us virtually, we'd like to welcome you as well. So this week, I want to highlight one of our very own, Rotarian Bridget Markwood, who pulled off quite a wonderful virtual RILA Club summer camp last week for about 60 students, most of whom were from Columbus, local schools, but some were from around our district, and then some were also from the Southeast. And as you know, because of COVID, the Rotary Youth Leadership Academy has been canceled the last two Junes, and so our students were missing out on this wonderful opportunity, and so it's been so wonderful to offer this virtually, and we had all these students participate. So thank you to Bridget for her commitment and dedication. So if you'd please join me now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'd like to call on Wayne Anthony to bring us the invocation in accordance with his faith tradition.
Let us pray. Oh God, thank you for every person that's here that joins us in person or by electronic means. Thank you for the organizations they represent, the families from which they come. We pray for your divine intervention in every home and in every life and in our community, that we might be the community that you wish that we would become, and that we might be an influence in that direction, even through Rotary. Bless now this meeting and those that will follow. We pray it in your name. Amen. Wherever it is.
Don't forget the cans. So like we said last week, the news is back, and so today it's my pleasure to ask Cedric Hill to bring us today's news.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here is a look at a few headlines. Last week, Columbus' very own Golden's Foundry was featured on ABC News' Made in America. The 139-year-old iron casting company got the idea to start making hard-to-find products like dumbbells and kettlebells during the pandemic. ABC celebrated the Foundry for reinventing itself during the pandemic, having produced more than 50,000 dumbbells and 15,000 kettlebells since March of last year. In Olympics news, Fort Benning Reserve Officer Amber English won the women's skeet shooting event, the gold medal. Women's weightlifter Heidelin Diaz won the Philippines their first gold medal since the Paris Olympics in 1924. And American gymnast Simone Biles withdrew from her gold medal event. Last, revising a decision made just 2 months ago, the CDC recommended on Tuesday that people vaccinated against the coronavirus resume wearing masks in public indoor spaces in parts of the country where the virus is surging. However, vaccines are still regarded as remarkably effective against the worst outcomes of any form of the coronavirus. The Dow Jones is down 37 points today. Your weather forecast, mostly sunny with a chance of stray showers and a high of 93 and a low of 74. The high is not going to be 30 anything today, ever in Columbus. And I will leave you with this. It has been a rocky past year and a half or so, but we can take some refuge with this quote from Dolly Parton. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you, Cedric. And now it's my pleasure to call on Sallie Hadden to introduce today's visitors and guests. Sallie.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to welcome a full complement of visitors and one visiting Rotarian. We'll begin with some guests of Dr. John Sims, and if you'll just raise your hand or stand up briefly. Dr. Sims has Dr. Bob Patton, who's a physician. He also has Dr. Angela Sims, who also is his wife. Jimmy Elder has his son Johnny Elder, who is with Morgan Stanley. Judy Thomas has Davin Williams, who is her brother. Joel Ames has several guests. First, Amanda Baker, who is in physician outreach with Piedmont Columbus Regional, and John Fellows, who is a communications specialist with Piedmont, and Bill Tustin, who is Vice President of Operations at Piedmont. Melody Trimble has two guests, Pam Fortenberry and her husband Mike. And we have one visiting Rotarian, Kevin Launcher from the Muskogee Club. Please help me in giving these visitors and guests a warm Rotary welcome.
President Laurie and fellow Rotarians, it's really my pleasure to introduce Sergeant Philip Hurst, our Rotary guest today. Sergeant Hurst is a Army brat. He was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He comes from an Army family, moved around a lot as a child, ended up in Virginia, graduated from high school in Northern Virginia and joined the Army National Guard immediately. Spent 6 years in the Army National Guard and then came on active duty here at Fort Benning 6 years ago and is now assigned as the school's NCO and the 199th Brigade out at Fort Benning. And in that capacity, he arranges for the soldiers in his brigade to get professional development schools from Ranger School to Bradley Leaders Course, Airborne School, and so forth. There's two things really unique about Sergeant Hurst that I'd like to talk about. One is that he was part of a deployment to the multinational force in the Sinai. You may remember, some of you may remember, that as part of the peace accords that President Carter negotiated with Israel and Egypt, there was a force that was assigned to the Sinai Peninsula to enforce that peace agreement. And there's been an American infantry battalion there since 1981, and his battalion was assigned that mission. They were there for about 6 months. The other thing that's interesting, I think, about that assignment is that was his assignment when he was in the Virginia National Guard. So one of the things that's happened to our nation since 2001 is we have relied on the National Guard unlike anything that we've done since World War II, and that's just another evidence of that. He has all the awards and decorations that you can imagine for a well-accomplished soldier like him. He's about to get promoted to Staff Sergeant on the 1st of September. He is not married. And so, Sergeant Hurst, we would like to welcome you. We have several things for you. We have a Rotary coin for you, and we have 2 tickets. This could come in handy to you, to the River Center, to the Symphony Orchestra, to the Columbus State Theater Department, the Springer Opera House, and free access to all the paid activities at the Infantry Museum. So you can take a young lady, or maybe more than one, to some of these activities over the next year. We want to thank you seriously, though, for all that you do and all the soldiers at Fort Benning. Please take our thanks to them back with you when you go. Sergeant Hurst.
Thank you for having me. I'll work on finding a lady. That's all I got.
You're going to be on TV tonight, so that may come sooner than you think.
Sergeant Hurst, now that you're thoroughly embarrassed, on a more serious note, we just want to extend our sincerest gratitude to you and all the men and women who wear the uniform and serve alongside you at Fort Benning. We appreciate all you do for our country, all you do for our community, and we'd like for you to come back and visit soon. And we'll have someone else maybe introduce you. In our announcements today, I have one quick reminder I'd like to share. If you have not attended an in-person meeting but you would like to come back, we would love to have you. If you would just RSVP by Friday of the week before, let us know you're coming. That would be great. If you have a standing reservation, all you need to do is to let us know if you can't be here. So today at the head table, we have Wayne Anthony, who brought us our invocation. And now I would like to ask past President Jimmy Elder to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, President Lori. I tried to figure, I've thought about it a dozen different ways. It's always interesting when you get to introduce somebody who is a good friend. And it's always a little dangerous when you introduce somebody who's a parishioner. It's also a little bit interesting when you have somebody that you deeply admire and respect. And trying to package all of that into something and introduce to you Melody Trimble, it's my privilege to introduce her to you today. Melody and I met when she came to talk with St. Francis about becoming the CEO. It was going to be a strategic moment for St. Francis because it was going through its transition as it was becoming part of this new experiment that's been wonderful, the Emory Healthcare process. And so the person who came in as CEO was going to be a very important hire for that moment. When Melody came, we just sat down and chatted a little bit, and I heard her vision. I saw her excitement and her joy. I learned about her that she had gone to nursing at Eastern Kentucky University. She'd has her master's in science in nursing from University of Kentucky. She's a fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives. And I thought about it, and I thought, this is really interesting. To have a CEO of a hospital who has dumped bedpans before. She started off, and I mean this is something that really impressed me. She started off as an emergency room nurse. What a strategic moment to come in during the COVID stuff and all of this and have as the person who is leading the organization, as someone who understood it from when the ambulance arrives and the patient has to have care. And that's been part of the magic of what she has done over these months here as a part of St. Francis Emory Healthcare. Melody, her husband Mike is here. They're delightful people. I hope you have a chance to get to know them. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of other time talking except to tell you she's involved with a Heart Association, with United Way, and with Chamber of Commerce and all sorts of other things. She jumped in with both feet, even in the middle of COVID. And I want you to listen to what she shares, but listen beyond the words. See the excitement, see the vision, and see the joy that she brings, because that's what she's brought to healthcare in the little world that she is in at St. Francis. Would you join me in welcoming my friend, Melody Trimble?
Well, thank you, President Lori and fellow Rotarians and our honored guests. What a privilege it is to stand up here. And I'm just going to, people that know me know this is what you get. I am as honest as the day is long. So I want to tell you a little bit about me and then tell you what the last year has been like at St. Francis and throughout, and how we've had to re-envision and reinvent almost everything that we did. So first, just a glimpse of who I am. Okay, it's on. Oh. There you go. Thank you. I've got a backup plan if this didn't work. So this is a glimpse of who I am. The first picture, my dad was in the military. He was a tank battalion commander, and I have four brothers, and I was the only girl. Please do not let that fool you one bit. I was tougher than a pine knot, and anything they could do, I am sure I could do better, or I tried to. But what it speaks to is I was brought up with being a great patriot for this country, but also understanding the person that stands to the right and to the left of you depends greatly on you, and that you don't do anything alone, that you're a team. So imagine if we got in trouble, it wasn't one of us. All five of us did. Wonderful brothers. Next, I love the game golf. I married a golfer, so it's a good thing I love the game of golf. In my pastime, I love to sew. My mother was a seamstress, and I kind of fell into that pathway too, but I learned to quilt a few years back. And an interesting story is I wanted to learn to quilt. And so I went to a fabric store, and I went on a weekend. And so weekends are mine. I don't have to be in a suit or anything else. And I ended up being there so much that if these ladies went to lunch, they'd say, "Can you watch the store?" They had no clue who I was. And I did. I cut fabric, but they taught me the wisdom of so much. And then one day, some of the people I work with came in, they go, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "Well, who is she?" And they told them, and they all just about died. Well, I didn't want them to know who I was, because I just really wanted to be a learner in how to sew and make quilts. And then finally, the last picture, that's our tribe. That's the Trimbles. It's my oldest daughter, Mary, standing there, my granddaughter, front and center, Hannah, and then Hunter and Hayden, and Daniel, and our youngest daughter's to the left there, and Mike's in the back waving. He keeps us all together. So that's my family. The one thing, too, that guides me, and I put this Bible verse, and it is my life verse that I chose at a really tough time when an F4 decided to hit my home when my family was in it. And I was at work. And that verse meant a lot to me because I prayed, because I was supposed to find joy in all circumstances. And that verse, Jimmy knows, I was sitting there the whole time. I knew they were getting hit going, "Oh my goodness, please let me see the joy in this moment," because there was such fear. But I had to have such courage to stand there and run a disaster at my hospital knowing my family was in harm's way. So when I think of St. Francis, I think of who we're named after. And it's one of the biggest reasons when I chose to come to St. Francis, I looked up St. Francis, and I could give you a story about a grandmother and a connection with St. Francis. But one of the things he's coined was saying is what is on the screen. And it was, "Today do what's necessary. Tomorrow we can do what's possible. And before long we're doing the impossible." And I stand in awe of, I know Martha's here on my board, my colleagues and friends at Piedmont, and others who are in healthcare. We pretty much did the impossible this year, didn't we? None of us thought what we were going to do, we would have to do. So I arrived in February, on February 10th. I learned where everything was. Only within 3 weeks of that, we turned everything upside down. And that's when COVID-19 became very real to us. And I remember the first patient we received in the area was from our partners and privileged to care for from Martin Army. And my team and I just looked at each other and said, it's begun. So you're on the train, now we have to move forward. So here's COVID. And I look at this picture because this was a child's picture of COVID. And it has a happy face on COVID and things are doing good. And I tried to keep this in perspective. And the reason I chose this picture and I had it in my office forever and a day was that, remember, there's nothing too big for the God I serve. And I remembered that. And I thought, COVID, we're going to beat you. And one of these days, we're all going to be able to sit back and go, whew, you know, what we did. But COVID is a year of 2020, and we're still having some effects of it now. When we look at what we did everything differently. And I wanted to contrast it for you. All of us had that. We used to hug. Even today, it's like, do we hug? Do we not hug? You know, is the surge coming? Is it coming again? What does it look like? But now we were taking pictures with masks. You know, we had to see forever and a day trying to figure out what's and who the person is behind the mask. Like, I'm astonished when we took the mask off that I sometimes couldn't recognize people. But imagine when you're sick and you're asking us to care for you, and we're privileged to do that. And I come in with gowns and gloves and masks. And you know what? It's all about a relationship when we're caring for you, isn't it? And the person behind that mask, you really couldn't see. We could see their eyes. And didn't eyes become so important to us? We could genuinely tell if someone was smiling, they were crying, they were hurting. But eyes became so important to us because everything else, we were constantly covered up with something, right? This picture I love. What do you do when you can't smile? We walked around and someone started, I don't know who it was, but they would go around with hearts, going heart, like we're smiling. If you can't tell, we're good. Or we'd go around thumbs up, everybody was good. Because when we couldn't see a smile, how would we know people were okay? Even our patients, we were given the thumbs up. And care, when we talk about care, think about the spiritual care that one needs on any given day. In the middle of COVID, mental health, spiritual health, as well as your health, were all equally important. And people like Jimmy and other pastors and other faith ministry couldn't come and visit our patients. And we truly were trying. We had a wonderful pastoral team that they just were there 24/7 in masses helping our patients and our team, because that right there, we couldn't go and worship anymore. We couldn't go and have their connector or their priest or pastor meet with them. So meeting the spiritual needs of our patients and our team became top of mind. And we had the Bradley Center, and one of the things that we did is we had connections, and we actually had sessions ongoing on a daily basis in the evening too with the Bradley Center and counselors, because we were feeling the impact, where so were our patients. So were they. We got so many iPads, and I will never forget, I had some people, I was privileged, taking my phone in their room and connecting families so they could see their faces, you know, just to have that bit of connection. And this picture I love because constantly we have a blessing of the hands during Nurses Week, but we went around saying, bless these hands, Lord. Bless this mind. Because we have a job to do right now that's bigger than what we ever thought. I've been in nursing over 40 years. Never in my day have I ever seen anything like the last year. So there were ways that, yes, we were separated, but we constantly went back to doing what we could to put resilience and reflection back in our team, and the power of telling stories. Just hugely powerful. Sometimes taping those stories, because that was a way that they could release and feel that they were heard. So communication. If you would have told me that we needed a lot more plugins in our hallways, hospitals typically, their hallways are clear, right? But all of a sudden, we needed to plug some of our pumps and some other things in the hallways so that we could mitigate how much time people were going in and out of rooms. Drinking fountains. All of a sudden, drinking fountains became what? Our board helped us, and the foundation, great help that we converted every water fountain in our hospital into a hand washing station. If you would have told me I needed to put electric plugs in my ceiling, I would have said you're silly. But that's what we had to do. If you would have told me the head of the bed is not where all the oxygen and everything is, the head of the bed now comes towards the door so we can see the patient's face every day. It didn't matter how it was positioned. We needed to be able to see their head every day and move all the pumps out. It was totally different, everything we did. Telemedicine, how we communicated to people, how we communicated doctors, here's what's happening, which we would actually hold the iPads many times so that they could communicate. How many of you all saw a doctor virtually? We did. We saw tons of people virtually because we were too scared to go into physicians' offices, or we were limited. And then we had to find a new way of supporting each other. And there's a lot of pictures of us with our hands out. And our pastoral team was with us. But we would walk by, and it would just be a kind word. Cards. We got so many cards from schools and kids, and how many lunches we got. But it was just a way to say, thank you, how you doing? What's going on with you today? We had team members that lost loved ones. We had team members that were sick. We had team members that their life is forever changed because of COVID, just like you did. But we had to keep coming and showing up every day. Out here, we conducted meetings when we could outside. We all like outdoors, right? But it became a new way of life for us. Teams meetings. We all got used to Teams meetings. Meeting outside. How could we share information and do it outside in the fresh air? How did we have gatherings? All that changed. And then this was October of 2020, and our team got together and they were trying to do some fun events so that we could have people actually having fun at work again. Trying to, as we did skills fairs, before you used to have groups of people, 5, 6, or 7, 8 going through them, we had to stage everybody through it. So we tried to do that. And then recognition, I think, was the most important thing that we needed to remember, is recognizing almost on a daily basis. We do our safety huddle, and we do a brief every morning at 8 o'clock at our hospital. At 8:30, 8 o'clock. Now we do it at 8:30, but we did there at 8 o'clock every morning. And the first thing we did was start off with 3 good things. And we'd ask people what's their moment of awe. And I know Martha and Jimmy's been there when we've done that. Why did we do that? There's a great study out of Duke, and Duke is one of our LifePoint partners. And Dr. Sexton did it with the Duke team and found that if we could get people to focus on 3 good things and look for a moment of awe every day, that it was like being on Prozac for 6 months if you did it for 2 weeks. I was like, okay, we need that uplifting spirit, right? So we have to start looking, what are those good things? And a good thing could be someone recognizing they didn't have any family come for several days, didn't have any calls. We started calling the patients, saying, you got a phone call. And it would be us talking to them and just saying, hey, we want to talk to you and let you know someone cares about you and is taking care of you, right? We wanted to look for those ways that we could give back and have good things happening. Looking for those moments of awe. when you would see the iPad and see the tears start in someone's eyes for the first time when they got to see them, and it was like they were almost touching them, that they could see someone. Those were moments of awe. So you had to look for those. And then we had to recognize our team. And I go back to the support of the community. I just want to say thank you for all the first responders, our policemen, all of the private and small businesses, everybody, big businesses, every one of you as community members. I mean, whether it was in a sermon or just in, passing by going, Mel, thanks for what your team and y'all are doing. I cannot tell you how wonderful that felt and uplifting that felt on days when it was just tough, and it still is tough. But that we knew someone out there was supporting us. And I can tell you, with United Way and other things, and I was so committed because we had been given so much during those times. I said, guys, we got to step it up. Because much was given to us, so much is expected to give back. And so we have a wonderful mission platform of how we're making a difference in our community. And United Way, we were going to launch that this year. Last year, we had a great campaign. And all I had to do is tell them the why. I said, they've been there with us the entire way. Reach real deep, people. Real deep. I know it's been a tough year, but we've been the lucky ones. We've had all the PPE. We've got the knowledge. We had our plenty of protection. We had people giving left and right. It was our chance to give back. And so I thank you very much. Okay, when the vaccine arrived, listen, I personally made sure our application was done. And I personally made sure every physician in my hospital was registered. I actually did the registrations myself. Why? I'm all in on that. And the reason I love this picture is, you have to have a little fun at work. So as we gave vaccines, they created the orb. It's called the COVID vaccine orb. It's going to go on the Christmas tree or whatever, but it's of all the vaccine. And then the picture to the right is of our dear physicians who showed up every day too. But they were the ones that said, you know what, we're first. We're going to stand in line and lead the way for the team to get the COVID vaccine. And we were delighted. I remember I was on the phone. I know they had me on auto ignore sometimes because I was dialing every day. I could not wait to get the vaccine into Columbus. And I had a whole lot of friends all of a sudden too, that, can I get the vaccine? I'm like, no, I'm standing in the rears too. It's my frontline team. They need to get the vaccine. So wonderful when we got the vaccine. I will tell you, I'll go to the next one, but one of the things as I look at and reflect back, I have 87, a little over 80 hospitals and long-term care facilities within the LifePoint family. And when I got here, again, I'm brand new to LifePoint, brand new to this beautiful community, in the middle of building a house. Life just changed for all of us, right? But I remember the one thing that kept me going with LifePoint is we were 80 strong. And I go back to what my dad said, person to the right and to the left. And I'll never forget being on a phone call and they said, Mel, because we've really had 3 surges, and we were one of the early surges because of some stuff we did with helping our neighbor in Albany. And we needed medications. Our patients needed a certain medication that was very hard to come by at this moment. And our out west hospitals were not having the surge like we were. And I could not believe we were on the phone and all of a sudden, Mel, we got your back. We're sending it. And I'm like, what? We had all kinds of stuff coming to us from our sister hospitals. And then when we went down, they sort of went up, and we reversed that. And we were fortunate that we were never in short supply of anything necessary, because we've all heard of some of the stories related to that. But the true heroes are the 2,400 team members, physicians, volunteers, Meredith, volunteers, who were standing there with us, who helped us with the privilege to care for each and every one of you all. And I stand today just saying our mission remains the same, but we are having to do things still differently. But it's now we have to take care of our team and fill them back up. And constantly what Lori and I were talking about, their mental health, their physical health, we have to pull back in and fill them with all the joy that they can find every day. Because the battle's not over. It's not. So we have to stay strong. I'll tell you just some great things. We talk about, in the middle of COVID, I said, wait a minute, we have swim lanes here. We have to keep moving forward, right? Keep moving forward. So some exciting things that happened is we officially had our survey for setting up a GME program for internal medicine. We are pending a September meeting, but we hope to be able to admit our first internal medicine residencies, partnering, helping with Mercer's, helping us as well. But we hope to have 15 internal medicine students in our market next year. Right behind that, we have a residency program under application for psychiatry, because we know there's such a big need for psychiatry. The other thing is, during this, we also applied for and received being the first emergency cardiac care center in the metro, or in the city. And we also just launched and worked with 15 counties now, putting in what's called Pulsera. And that is allowing connections for EMS to our hospital so that we can see what's happening, particularly around your heart, and be able to be ready. So when you arrive, we already know what you need. We can start pre-hospital. And if you have to go to have that vessel open up so your heart can drink some blood and live, that's a good thing, right? Then we're able to do that. For me, Jimmy already said, I tried to jump in this community feet first, not head first. I felt like it was head first, but feet first, because this is my home. And one of the things we did first, before we left here, the interview, I felt pretty confident. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had already found a lot. We actually found two, number 1 choice and 2 choice, picked a builder, and that's where we were going to build. And 10 or whatever months it was later, in October, we moved in our home. And as I brought people into the community, that's a requirement I have. I want you to set roots here. This is our home. And you can't be one toe on the dock and one on the boat. You got to be all in. And that's what they've absolutely done. Again, I'll leave that. It's just that COVID-19's here. It's real. I encourage all of you. There's a lot of science behind the COVID vaccine being very effective and safe. There's still some work they're doing, but the best defense we have against COVID-19 is the vaccine. I had a husband that every day I went home asked me, honey, can I have it yet? And he is in remission from cancer in the middle of this, and praise God for that. And when I found out he had that, I was begging. I could not wait until the governor gave release and my husband could be one of those recipients of vaccine. And honestly, he beat me. Before I could tell him, he was already at this place getting his vaccine. So it is the answer, and it's a solid in us fighting COVID. Well, I told you just about everything there. We did do a lot of recruitment this year. We have 13 physicians we've already onboarded in many surgical services and in the OB field. And again, we are mission driven, and that's the beauty of the hospital. It has a 70-year legacy. It's quite special. And I'm just honored, truly honored, that I had the opportunity, and I have the opportunity every day to show up and be present, living in Columbus and serving as the CEO of St. Francis. I don't take it lightly. So you'll see me often not in my office, because I really like to be out on the floors and in the ERs. And yes, I'm an ER nurse, and you can't take that away from me. But that's where you'll find me. But thank you very much for welcoming me into the Rotary Club and into this community. My husband and I just love it here. So thank you.
Melody, we have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions. So any burning questions, Dick?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I'm thrilled the way you feel about the vaccine.
Yes.
Piedmont and the VA have made it mandatory for the staffs of their hospitals to be
Yes.
vaccinated. What's the situation at St. Francis, and what percentage of your staff is vaccinated?
I knew those questions were going to come. Here is what I'll say. At this point, LifePoint and Emory Healthcare and Emory, we have not mandated the COVID-19 vaccine. The science right now is leaning very much that it is safe. There are still some outstanding things we would like to have addressed, and we may move that way. I don't know. If you ask me how many's got the vaccine, we're actually tabulating that today, but I can tell you it's around somewhere between 62 and 70% of all of our team is vaccinated, and so we're thrilled with that, but I would love it to be 100%. I think if I may say, and this is science, not Melody Trimble, there is still that concern with some young people and those childbearing years. There is, maybe not for you, but it's out there. So I think that we need to, that's the piece that we need to understand better, and I think other people will get on board. I believe in it. My family has been vaccinated. I have been vaccinated, but I think there is caution for that. Again, it may not be what you believe or I believe, but that's what we hear. So that's where we stand right now. Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on the fertility risk with young females? I have daughters, as you do. One got the vaccine, one doesn't want to get it. How do you handle that?
Welcome to my family. What he asked is, can I present the science on fertility? Number one, no, I cannot. There probably some epidemiologist or vaccine expert thing can do that. And I'd encourage you to read, because just to your point, everybody will read and walk away with their perception. But I am a house divided as well. I have one daughter that's all over it, and one daughter that's like, Mama, I'm not sure. And so I get it, but it is an individual choice. What I do is present the science, but I don't want to shame you into it. I want you to understand it and be willing to take it.
Melody, thank you so much for that. You know, as I'm listening to you and I'm learning things that I truly didn't know, I'm just thinking it was no accident that you were the right leader in the right place at the right time. And I'm so grateful for that and for all that your team has done. So thank you. As you know, as being a Rotarian, we will put a brand new children's book inscribed with your name in the Columbus Public Library in your honor. So thank you again. So remember that there is a replay of today's program. Will be on Facebook, as well as there will be a YouTube link. And we have our next Zoom happy hour tomorrow evening from 6 to 8. And so for those of you who would enjoy having your own happy hour beverage in the comfort of your own home, please join us for fellowship, and you get a makeup. Right, Miss Mary? Get a makeup. I would also like to re-welcome our visiting Rotarians and guests. A special thank you to Sergeant Hurst for being here. You honor us with your presence. And I hope you'll be here next week when our very own District Governor Mary Ligon will be here. So until we meet next week, let's continue to make a difference.